Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our Data for AI Week conference. We hope you're enjoying it. This is day 3, and we are excited by our next session here. We have some great participation and some great stuff to share with you. So this is the how AI is helping public safety agencies demonstrate greater transparency. So we're going to hear some pretty good details. We have a little presentation. We have some panelists to join, some information sharing. Just real quick to go over the logistics for those of you that are new to Crowdcast or just joining us for this session. First of all, I'm Ron Schmelzer, a managing partner and principal analyst at Cognilytica. We are a research advisory and education firm focused on AI and machine learning. And the reason why I mention that is that we're producing this conference. So if you have any questions, issues, problems, anything, please do reach out to us. We're at info at Cognilytica, COGNILYTICA.com. You can reach out to us and help with any problems you may be having. Next, we cannot make this event happen without the fantastic support of our sponsors. We're thrilled to have them participate with us. So our friends at Allegiant and Appen, at Amazon Web Services and Carahsoft, at Cloud Factory and Databricks, Data Robot, Labelbox, Microsoft, MTX Group, Omnisci, and of course, Veritone, who are here, have all been supporting us. Not only are they providing their support and some live sessions, but we have lots of on-demand content as well. So while between sessions, after hours, if you are interested in digging deeper into data labeling, data annotation, data preparation, data engineering, data, all sorts of sourcing and generating data, all these topics around data, there's like over 120 some odd sessions that are available, more than the total number of live sessions. So we encourage you to check out all that content. Also, this event is for you, our attendees. We'd love to talk to each other. We love everybody here on this session, but we could not really, do this event without you, our attendees. So we really do want your participation. So if you have a question, and I encourage you to ask your question, please put that in the Q&A box. If you look below the video window here, you will see the little ask a question box. And in that ask a question box, type in your question. You can see already we have a whole bunch of questions seated in here. And if you see a question you like, upvote it, because that means that it's a popular question. And we will basically take the questions in order of their interest from the audience. Keep it professional, keep it clean. This is a professional event. And just in general, we really do want your feedback and participation here to make this event a success. So only other thing for you to have is we're running this event under so-called Chatham House rule, which means that you're welcome to use any information you see here. You're welcome to, participate and engage. And we just ask everybody not to quote anybody in any sort of public source without their prior consent. That's the Chatham House rule. Share everything you want. Make comments. And don't be afraid of somebody quoting you in the press, because they'll need to get your permission first. So that is the overview for the event. Looks like we have our feedback from our mic there, so I'm going to mute everybody. So, I mean, I'm going to mute you, Dave. Okay. We are dealing with that. All right. Sorry, guys. I apologize for that feedback. Looks like I had to drop Chief Jantas at the moment. We'll have to get him back on. So in the meantime, I would like to transition this over to Daniel Wong, who will do a little bit of presentation while I work to get Chief Jantas back on.
Thanks, Ron, and hello, and thank you again, everyone, for joining us at today's session, How AI is Helping Public Safety Agencies Demonstrate Greater Transparency, with our special guest today, retired Chief David Jantas, Pemberton Township Police Department out in New Jersey. My name, again, is Daniel Wong from the Marketing Department at Veritone, and I'll be today to help administer this session. I want to thank you. First, I want to thank you all for our first responders who are out in the field and keeping us safe during this unprecedented time. We know at Veritone that the world is a very different place than it was just a few months ago when we set out to plan and deliver this session to you all. So we hope that today's session will be able to provide you some new information that will help your teams become more efficient, allowing agency personnel time savings to focus on areas of increasing importance. So today I'd like to introduce you our moderator for this session, Mr. John Gasick. John is the head of Veritone's Government Solutions Business Unit. Thank you, John, for being here today and being able to moderate. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to you. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Daniel. And good afternoon on the East Coast and still morning here out on the West Coast. I see Chief is back. Great, Chief. We got you set up. So with us today is retired Chief David Jantas from the Pemberton Township. Has some really interesting stories to share around this topic. We also have Ben Ha, a senior solutions architect from Veritone, who will do a quick demo of our AI-enabled solution to help with redaction. Daniel, go ahead and hit the next slide. Our agenda today is to just walk through briefly the law enforcement and body-worn camera landscape. Candidly, with sort of the changes in the amount of media coverage over the last couple months, this is broader than just body-worn cameras. It's also CCTV footage, drone cams, even video and audio that's coming from the media. So it's a broader problem that we're trying to deal with. We're going to spotlight the Pemberton Township Police Department just to give you some understanding of what they do, talk a bit about public transparency, go through some best practices that the chief is going to share, and his criteria for looking at how to help with that with a redaction solution. We'll do a quick demo and take some Q&A. So let's just jump right in. So a lot of the driver or the impetus for the need to do redaction is coming from body-worn cameras. There's roughly 18,000 agencies in the U.S. And about half penetrated through the end of 2018. And as a result of some of the shootings and other things that happened in the 2014, 2015, there actually is money put aside for grant programs to be able to fund these across the different agencies. And it's both a great thing and then a complicated thing, which the chief will kind of walk through with you. For every 75 cameras that you have on your staff, there's an additional headcount that's required. And so in this world today, with more and more body cams being deployed, the request and drive for more media, it puts a lot of pressure on an organization, both large and small. Go ahead, Daniel, and hit the next one. So the chief is from Pemberton Township. He just retired a few months ago. He and I have had the pleasure to do one of these together previously, and he has some very interesting stories. But the thing that we want to emphasize and the thing that we want to bring out is agencies like Pemberton are both being required to provide video based upon legislation. Out here in California, there's some very specific legislation. And it's becoming more broad, and this is where the chief comes in. The agencies really want to be more transparent with their constituencies and the public. And so a lot of what the chief was faced with was how is it that he can use body cam footage and connect with his citizens and be transparent. And this was before any of the civil unrest. So let's start with that. I'm going to kick it over to the chief. And Chief, you want to just kind of walk through your high level, and then we'll jump into some of the details.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and I'm glad to be here today. I can tell you that the Pemberton Township Police Department, we lagged behind a lot of other agencies in New Jersey and nationally in getting body cams. We had in-car cameras for years, but I was fortunate enough while I was the chief of police to obtain a grant through the BJA, the Bureau of Justice Assistance, to assist us in the project. So one of the plans, there's many facets. Anybody that's worked any sort of a law enforcement project before, no, there's a lot of facets to it. But one of the selling points that I had in the grant that we were going to make our not only the body worn camera video more available to the public and to the media, but also the in-car cameras. So that was a an unintended consequence at the beginning of the project, but I certainly sold that to the federal government as part of our plan. So what we wanted to do was take those non-critical incidents and put those out to the public to let them see what we were doing and to see what was occurring in their communities. But in order to get that done, I had to select some sort of a redaction program, software program, in order to protect third-party people that might be in the periphery of what occurred, some information that we might not want out to the public while still sharing the main brunt of what occurred out there. In New Jersey, we're required to, on use of force, deadly force incidents, the time limit's set unless there's some other circumstances. We're to release our video within 20 days. I'm sure you in the law enforcement community can see that that's rather aggressive. And of course, that would be at the state level or the county level where they would assist in redaction. But what I wanted and what I wanted from my agency was to be able to release that our local video earlier to help us in either solving crimes, letting the public know about crime trends, and then that showed that we had the necessity to be able to redact certain areas of video.
So Chief, as you hit on a couple of key points, Daniel, if you could go to the next slide for me. When you thought about the solution and what you were doing, it's a combination of public request, but also all the media that came in, as you pointed out. And as you went through and evaluated it, can you talk a little bit just about the timing? I know you grant in 2018. Maybe tell a little bit of a perspective of deployment and then what you ran into as you started accumulating the video.
So you're exactly right. From the awarding of the grant was early October 2018 to the point where we implemented not only the hardware, but our policy and had people trained on everything that this was going to involve. That's quite a long time. It's not a simple matter of just buying these products out there. You have to have your policy really scrutinized. The equipment and software that you're buying has to be not just demoed, but it has to be thoroughly evaluated. And that was a long process. But one of the things we did from a policy perspective to include our video release, making sure that it was in line with best practices, state and local guidelines, was that we posted our policy that included our redaction policy so that they were ready for this. We posted that online and we made it available to the public.
So part of what I want to do, and so exactly where Daniel's gone here, is walk through each of these best practices that we've talked about and what we helped you with. And just so the audience knows, candidly, the chief selected Veritone, and part of what I want him to kind of share with you is both the broad concepts that he was focused on, but also the implementation and the use of what he's trying to get done and what some of those pieces. So I think you covered the very first point. You want to be able to redact across all the video, and that was one of the things that we do very well at Veritone, is that we can ingest any kind of media, and that was one of our turning points. The second one, Chief, do you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, the ability to redact necessary segments, as the slide says, there were a couple of components to that. Number one, let's face it, folks, we have cops doing this. They're not software engineers. They're not graphic artists. The software had to be easy to use. So that really drove what kind of video we were going to be able to make available to the public. So we evaluated multiple redaction solutions. And what we found was that the Veritone product was very easy to use. When I went through the training with my command staff, I think we were in just under an hour to really be immersed in the software and understand how to use that. We knew that we weren't always going to have the ability to have our county or state entities do our redaction for us at the level that we wanted to do it. So we needed to be able to do it ourselves, and it had to be simple. It also had to be reliable from a security standpoint, and be able to, as anybody that's looking into this, they know that the software from Veritone is Criminal Justice Information System, CJIS compliant, with where the software is stored and how it's accessed. So those were two key things that were very important to us.
So a couple points that the chief hit on there. Daniel, why don't you just go ahead and build this slide out all the way? Security is a big issue. The chief solution and where we run is on top of Azure GovCloud. We have a tight partnership with Microsoft. We'll talk a little bit about that, but it's important to understand that we understand the type of media that we're getting, and that it has compliance risk to it. Chief, if you wouldn't mind on that one, could you mind telling the story of the hospital arrest?
Sure. It actually wasn't an arrest. It was a complaint from a citizen who came in and had an issue at one of our local medical facilities and was contemplating criminal charges against the healthcare representative that they were dealing with. So the officers get their call. They get it as what we call a level 2 call, and they're going with their lights and their siren on. And once that was activated, that of course activated the in-car camera and the body-worn camera. So they get to the hospital and they find that the complainant did not get the level of service from the healthcare professional that they were dealing with. The officers go into the medical facility. They're walking through the hallways. They get to the location. And as we reviewed the video for release to this complainant, number one, we saw that there was criminal justice information showing on the officer's laptop computer in his car. When we get to the hospital, there was all sorts of information about patients, medications that they were on, blood pressure. It would have made your healthcare professionals, your compliance officer for HIPAA, it would have made their skin crawl. So what we were able to do using the Veritone redaction software, not only to blur out the heads that were not involved in this, that we didn't see necessary to provide to this person, we were also able to use the user-defined fields to block out what was on the monitor in that officer's car, what was on those whiteboards that were around the hospital walls, other patients that might have been seen. And we were able to do this rather quickly and get the requested information to the complainant who wanted to sign complaints against the healthcare professional.
Thanks, Chief. That just as the audience, the last time we did one of these together, this event had happened right away, and this was right at the beginning of COVID. So it was, New Jersey was a hot spot early, and the chief was dealing with that. A couple other points I just want to emphasize for the audience. This software is very easy to use. These agencies, you own your own body cams. We really don't think it's wise to rely on other agencies to do the redaction for you. And Chief, you mentioned that. You want to add anything to that?
And that's exactly right. And even if the officers hadn't used the software in a while, the command staff members that were authorized to do redaction and review video, we've contacted customer service on occasion, and they've let us down to where we needed to be very quickly. As I said earlier, these officers, these command staff members are not, this is not what they do on a daily basis, but they're very adept now at navigating the software.
Chief has, I know you've been retired for several months. Has the requirement changed at all with sort of the civil unrest issues that the country's been sort of dealing with in your region?
Any one of your audience can tell you, and I try to stay on top of the newer trends as much as possible. I have moved on to another career, but of course, things are going to be changing. And I think transparency is going to be key to that. I think we will be in a position as either former or current law enforcement, we're going to be required on a regular basis to release video that we would have not normally released. So we have to be prepared to be self-sufficient in watching what we release, so that we don't get disinterested parties in a position where we put them in harm's way, or maybe taint a jury pool with things that they shouldn't see. And of course, there are certain things that are under investigation that must remain confidential. And this type of software is going to be key to getting that done.
All right. So, hey, Daniel, let's go to the next slide, and we'll talk just real briefly a little bit of a summary here. But just kind of going through these points, Chief, as you were making the selection, do you want to just go back through these just real quick, and I'll add a little bit of color just for the.
Certainly. Obviously, as I've talked about multiple times during this presentation, the software has to be easy to use. The officers, if they're going to do it and they're going to do it completely, they have to trust that it's going to be complete, and what they want redacted from the video is going to happen, and it's not going to be a highly technical process. When we got our body cameras, we purchased a rather robust server, but with the Veritone software, you're uploading it to the cloud, you're doing your manipulation of the video product and downloading it back to yourself. It's quicker, easier, and that gives you the ability to manipulate the video faster than you would off of your own server.
The other thing I'll just jump in there, Chief, is and again, this was in the middle of your deployment, but one of the benefits of being in the cloud and our solution is that we roll out features very quickly. And so the chief and everybody who uses our software, as we add new features, those become available to the entire population. And so as an example, we recently added a couple features that Ben's going to show you in a minute to speed up even further the process of redacting, which, and Chief can comment on this, it takes about 5 to 10 hours for a human to redact an hour of video. With our solution, you can get it done in less than an hour. And so it's both audio and video that we can ingest from and provide an audit log of all the steps afterwards. So all that's cloud-based, again, running on Azure. And I'll comment on this one, Chief, and nobody from Microsoft has joined us, but the Microsoft cloud is CJIS compliant. It is unique on the government side. It's not their commercial cloud. And again, as Chief talked about, it's an important element to the overall solution and process.
The only thing I would add to that is anyone that's out there evaluating a software solution such as Veritone or any redaction, you really, when you go out to the Veritone software site and you look at the product, click on the links for the Microsoft Azure cloud and go out and look at what they offer and what their protections are. This is not some small building somewhere with a server in it and they claim that it's secure. This is a whole field of highly protected, certified by both the federal government and the military, for that matter, to ensure that your data is going to remain secure. And we've all seen time and time again towns that have been held by ransomware or whatever the case may be. You really got to be comfortable that your video is going to be in a secure location.
Great, thank you, Chief. So why don't we transition to a demo, Ben? I'm going to have you. I'm going to have you grab the screen, and then we'll come back to this slide and talk a little bit about the Microsoft capabilities. Ben?
Great. Thank you, John. Okay, so I'm going to start sharing my screen now. I'm getting hey, Ron, I'm getting a message on too many video sources being shared. Hey, Daniel, can you stop sharing your screen for a second? Okay, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so what you're looking at on screen is the Redact application. And as we've discussed, it allows you to securely upload your content to the Microsoft Azure GovCloud, which is designed with CJIS requirements in mind. And the first step is to be able to upload your media. So when you're looking at this screen, you can bring in any audio or video file that's a standard format. So the general rule of thumb here is that if it doesn't require a proprietary codec or player, you should just be able to bring the file right in and work with it. So Redact is manufacturer camera hardware agnostic. So it doesn't matter who you're using for your body-worn camera provider, or if you have a different in-car camera provider, etc. We can just bring in and work with all the standard file formats out of the box. Now, in terms of how we speed up the redaction process, you'll see two checkboxes below. The first option is doing head and object detection. So for video content, it's going to go frame by frame throughout the video, automatically detecting heads of people, as well as laptop MDT screens and license plates. As a user, you'll be presented with a screen that looks like this. And so this is going to show you not only the video, but it will show you a summary of each detected object along with corresponding timestamps. So you can see the head detections are shown here in green, the laptop MDT screens are in orange, license plates are in blue, and you can even create custom user-defined regions, which we'll come back to later on, in yellow. And that allows you to quickly review and check or uncheck whether or not you wish to apply a given redaction, depending on your redaction requirements. The second option is transcription. So for audio content, let's say a WAV or MP3 file, or a video containing audio content, we're able to transcribe the spoken conversation. And what that allows us to do is use the transcript as a visual way of redacting the sensitive audio content within the file. And so we'll show you an example of how that works a little bit later on. Starting off with video redaction, you'll be presented with a screen that looks like this. Again, it summarizes for you each of the different automatically detected heads and other objects throughout the screen. And we can click into any moment just by clicking on the link on the right. It'll jump right to that moment in the video. We can review it and choose whether or not to apply a redaction simply by checking or unchecking that box. And you'll see that show on the display here on the left. So that's a simple supervision process you're doing, checking or unchecking whether or not you wish to apply a given redaction based on your requirements. Beyond just reviewing the automatic detection results, what you can also do is create your own user-defined regions. So let's say you're in a scenario like what the chief described earlier, where you have sensitive documents on screen or HIPAA patient information, things like that, anything outside of the automatic detection list. What you can do is create your own user-defined region. So this computer monitor in the center of the screen, for example, could be sensitive. I can draw my own user-defined region around that area, and then we can track that object forward in time or throughout the entire video. And so just like the automatically detected heads and other objects, it will track, follow, and blur this object throughout the entire video, just like that. Now, that works really well in most cases, but oftentimes, as I'm sure some of you know, with body-worn camera footage, the footage tends to be very dynamic in nature. So not only do objects move around on screen, but they'll actually move in and out of the camera's frame of view. And so to help with those types of challenging situations, we've developed a feature called live tracking. What that does is it takes the standard tracking that's built into the application, and it allows you to take it off of autopilot, so to speak. And so as a user, you have full control over the tracking process. What I can do is lock this redaction box to my mouse, and as I advance the video frame by frame or watch it in slow motion, I can actually move my mouse around to track the object myself. So I have full control over that tracking process. What I can also do is increase as well as decrease the size of the box to take into account the object moving closer and further from the camera's point of view. And so with this live tracking feature, it becomes really easy to work with even the most challenging and dynamic of video sequences. What I'm going to show you guys next is an example of the automatic detection in action. So I'm going to play a video of someone walking through a crowded street, and you'll see how this automatic detection works. So you'll see as the video is playing through, it's popping up those automatic head detection boxes in green. And one thing I want to point out for you guys is that it actually picked up the reflection of this person in the store glass window on the right. And so earlier on, we had mentioned the different types of AI that we're applying to this redaction use case. we're doing head detection here. So it's actually looking for a head on a torso, regardless of whether or not you can see the facial features. So if you think about it in today's day and age, not only do you have challenging situations like this where the face might be too far away or blurry, or examples like this where the person's back is to the camera and so you can't see the face at all, but nowadays you have people wearing face masks everywhere, and so you can't even see all of the facial features. A lot of other redaction solutions out there rely on facial detection, where those facial features have to be clearly visible to the camera. And so Redact will use a head detection model instead, which now allows us to work with even the more challenging situations like this, because we're just looking for a head on the torso. So given that Redact is built on this broader aiWARE platform, we're able to leverage the right model for the right use case, as we're seeing here. The next topic I'm going to cover with you guys is how we deal with audio content. So whether it's video containing audio or a standalone audio file, you have the ability to transcribe that content, and that allows you to now visually review the sensitive portions of the audio. So if you think about the traditional approach for audio redaction, it's going through listening to every second of audio or visually looking at it in a wave editor to figure out where is sensitive audio being spoken. So now what we can do is rely on the transcript to quickly search and skim through the transcript for key moments. What's nice about this is we can click on any word in the transcript, it'll jump right to that key moment, and it'll actually start playing and highlighting back the words karaoke style, so you know exactly where you are as you follow along with the file. And so the point of that is every word has a corresponding timestamp. What that means is once I've clicked onto that section, reviewed it, and confirmed it's sensitive, I can simply highlight a portion of that text in the transcript. So in this case, this is the phone number of the individual. I can highlight that and right-click and redact it. So what I've just done is I've told the system to go look at the corresponding start and end time of that selection of text based off the transcript, and then mute or tone over the corresponding piece of the audio track. So down below the player, you'll see where I clicked into the timeline. It shows me now I've selected from the 6 to 9 second mark in that file, and I've muted or toned over that audio. So it's a visual approach to doing audio redaction, and as you can imagine, that's a huge time saver. What we can also do using the same technology is search for a word or phrase and find every instance of that sensitive information throughout the transcript, right-click and redact every instance of it. And so now as you go through this, you'll hear that it actually mutes or tones over anytime it reaches that sensitive part of the transcript. So as John mentioned earlier, this is a huge time savings on both the video and audio redaction side. Typically, when you're going through the redaction process on a manual frame-by-frame approach, it takes you anywhere from 5 to 10 hours to complete an hour-long video. So 5 to 10 times the length of the file. With Redact, we're able to do that same redaction in under an hour on average, and so it's closer to a 1-to-1 ratio. Once you're ready to review the content, we have different tools available. So we have the ability, for example, to change the outline from a normal outline like this to a block fill, so which makes it really obvious if you potentially missed a redaction. And then what we can also do is increase the playback speed to, let's say, 4 times as fast. And so once we're ready to do that final quality check, we can quickly play back the video at an accelerated speed, verify we haven't missed any redactions. And then once we're satisfied with that output, we can click the Redact File button, and that's going to allow us to create the published redacted file for review, which we can then view in this next tab. So as I'm playing back this video, you'll see it's following along. It's automatically blurring the head. You can also just level that blur depending on your preference to be lighter or darker, or even do a complete black fill if it's really sensitive, like inside a hospital or private residence. We also have the ability to mute or tone over the corresponding audio. So you didn't hear it over the web conference, but when it got to that sensitive part of the audio, it started muting or toning over that piece. And so once you're ready to turn over the requested file, this download button will allow you to do exactly that. Not only will you receive a copy of the redacted audio or video file, but it comes with a chain of custody audit log that will capture every action that's occurred to the file since it was first uploaded into the system. So you have the date and time of each event, the user that was logged in, and every action that they've took within the system, so that you have that complete history and you know what's happened to the file. So that's our Redact application. So Daniel, with that, I'm going to turn things over back to you.
Hey, Ben, as you're flipping it back, can you just spend a second and describe how the time it takes to turn a customer on, and then a minute about the training?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So just like Chief Jantas had explained earlier on, it took them about an hour to get up and running on Redact. That's what we found on average. It takes anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour to be able to go through and onboard a customer. And because this is cloud-based, the beauty of that is you don't have to install any software. You don't have to maintain it from an IT perspective, do patches and upgrades, things like that. So you get instant access to the latest and greatest features, and we can turn on an account for you literally under an hour. And so we can get it turned on very quickly, provision you an account, and then train you, and you guys can be up and running the next day. So it's really fast, it's really easy, and we've really designed it with that in mind.
So, Chief, anything you want to add before I give the Veritone commercial?
So the points that have been made are spot on, and that was part of our evaluation process and why we ended up with Veritone. I encourage your audience to do their homework, and not only on the product, but also on the Microsoft Azure to give them that peace of mind. And I do these things because it justifies the decision that I made.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it. So we're going to open it for questions. Just real briefly, and I want to just explain a little bit about on Veritone. Daniel's got us here. Redact is just one of several applications that we have on Azure. Our focus at Veritone is really around AI and cognitively enabling processes and workflows that either exist today or should exist. And law enforcement has a lot of disparate solutions out there. Our goal is to tie them together and make them more efficient, more effective using cognition. And so we have a couple other products that is part of that suite today. Veritone Illuminate, which is really a product to suck in a lot of disparate data and cull it down from an investigation perspective. Can be used on jailhouse calls, interview rooms, cell phones, audio, video, CCTV footage, looking for a suspect potentially across a large corpus of data. And then we have another product where we call it Identify, where we have video evidence, but we don't know who we're looking for. And we allow it to be a real efficient and effective comparison to a set of known offender databases. As Chief mentions, all of this resides on Azure. We're very close to the Microsoft team, do a lot of joint things together. And really, again, I'll reaffirm our value. What we're trying to do is cognitively enable processes today to make them more efficient. And particularly in this time of budget pressure from COVID, there's opportunities to retool and do things differently. And we want to support law enforcement in their mission to do so. So with that, Daniel, let's take any questions that people have.
Yep. Ron, go ahead.
Yeah. I see some questions here from the audience. I just want to encourage again the audience to please add some questions here. And Daniel, I know we have some questions here. I can call on them. Might as well. I know we could all see them. So let's just start with the top question here, and it's about automated head recognition. So does the automated head recognition technology pick up people in photos such that if an officer is walking through someone's home, where there are photos on the wall, perhaps, or somewhere else, family photos, will they be recognized for redaction?
Yeah, so let me go first, and then I'll let Ben clean up after me as usual. The answer is yes, generally yes. Similar to the reflection in the window, the system will automatically grab those. If it doesn't, then you can draw the bounding box manually and let it track forward and backwards. Ben, anything you want to add to that?
Yep, that's exactly correct. And obviously the quality of that video feed is gonna matter. So if even with a human you can't detect that there's a face on screen in that photo, then it may not pick it up. But in general, if you can see that there's a head on a torso, it picks that up. And that's the reason we picked that specific AI model for that use case.
Ben makes an important point. AI generally is not going to be better at listening or watching than a human. But what it does do is it automates the process. So it speeds it up at a rate that a human can't do it. And so it moves the process forward. And what we say at Veritone is we're not trying to remove humans. We're trying to take them out of the loop and put them in a supervisory role. And in that redaction product, you can see that really comes to life, is that the AI is doing the heavy lifting and the human does the review and the cleanup.
Okay, excellent. Well, great question there. So let's add a few more questions about video and video redaction. So first one has to do with compatibility. So is software compatible with all body camera types? And then there was also a second follow-up question, I think that's similar to that, is with L3 car cameras. So maybe you want to answer one and both.
Yeah, Ben, why don't you go ahead and talk about all the different media?
Sure. So the general rule of thumb is that if the video or audio file does not require a proprietary codec or player, you should be able to bring it right into Redact and just work with it out of the box. So we've made Redact as standardized as possible so that I can work with a variety of different hardware camera manufacturers across the board. Now, in terms of the L3 in-car camera specifically, we've had a lot of experience with those types of cameras. What they actually do use a proprietary format for their video. However, they actually come with a utility built in where you can actually export that out to a standard MP4 type of format. And so the short answer is yes, but it does require a quick conversion using their utility.
Hey, Ben, why don't you talk briefly about what we do if video gets uploaded and the customer reaches out to us through customer success?
Sure. So in the event that there's any sort of format, let's say that it is not compatible, it's not working, one of the things that we have the ability to do with, of course, the customer's express permission is we can actually review that file on their behalf. And we have a number of different technologies available to us in-house to be able to do different types of transcoding and conversions on some of those more proprietary formats. So don't ever walk away from a file. Please contact us, reach out to us. We're happy to work together with you on that.
All right, excellent. So there's a question or two on audio. And this question has to do with redaction on audio files. So does the software have the capability of redacting only an audio file, something that doesn't have, or just an audio file? So something that does not have any video associated with it, such as an interview, phone call, whatever. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So yes, the answer is yes. And one of the unique capabilities in the technology is, as you saw, the audio redaction. So it could be a phone call, it could be a jailhouse call where there's no video, whatever bit of evidence that needs to be either presented to the public or a FOIA request or taken into court, any of the audio can be done. Ben, anything you want to add to that one?
The only thing I would say is that we've made it easy within one application and interface to do both audio and video redaction. So whether your file has both video and audio to it or just audio, you can pick and choose. You can just have one application, one interface, and it makes it really easy.
Ben, can you talk about how it's often done just manually, just so people understand how manual it really is with audio?
Yes. Yeah. So oftentimes for audio content, people are just listening to every second of audio to figure out when there might be sensitive information, or they're visually looking at the audio file in some sort of audio wave editor to figure out when someone's talking, and then they're reviewing it and then putting in a start and end time. So with a transcript-driven approach, you saw how easy it was in that demonstration to search and skim the transcript for key parts. You can quickly verify that it is sensitive and then simply highlight and right-click and redact. So it's just a huge time saver.
Excellent.
I'd like to add on that we actually experienced an unintended benefit from the audio transcription software since we transcripted our own witness and victim statements. We record everything that we do, so we were able to get that, and that saved the detectives a lot of time from listening to audio to just have that transcripted audio in the software.
Yep, that's a great point. And one more add-on to that would be, you can start with Redact as your initial entry point, but if you find that you have a lot of transcription-driven use cases outside of redaction, now we have a separate application called Illuminate that John mentioned, where we can do those transcription-heavy use cases, do a lot more than just search the transcript. We can edit the results of the transcript, we can export it out, and so we have all your transcription needs covered under one roof.
And we do that in multiple languages. So if it's, especially different parts of the country, there's a lot of different languages, we can transcribe them accordingly.
Great answers. So have one more night. Once again, I encourage our audience, and there you're here. I can see you. Over 1,500 live on the Crowdcast platform, several hundred here at this session. So don't be shy. Maybe you're listening to this in eating your late lunch. So the question has to do with logs. So does the software create a log of actions taken? So I guess you can, a history of the redactions or a history of the activity. So if there's a mistake or other issue or maybe proof, you need some proof. Can you talk a little bit about that?
The easy answer is it does. Chief and I both gave it thumbs up. Ben, do you want to add some more meat to that bone?
Sure. So as you saw in the final part of the demonstration, when you download the redacted audio or video file, it comes paired with a CSV file, a comma delimited CSV file that captures every action that's occurred. So it'll have the date and time of the event, the user that was logged into redact, and the details of every action. So even if they drew, let's say, a user-defined region for a custom redaction object, it'll actually show you the deepest details of, let's say, the X and Y coordinate on the video that it captured off of. So you definitely have the full chain of custody requirement satisfied there.
Okay.
I'm glad you actually used that term of chain of custody. One of the things we scrutinized when we were looking for a software solution to do this, we had to make sure that the anybody that put their fingerprints on a piece of video, that we were going to be able to demonstrate what was done there. So that chain of custody, that electronic chain of custody, was another crucial point for us.
Okay. All right here. Well, we're close to the end of the session. If there's any other I see another question up now, I think. Yes, question from Heidi. So the question is, can your audio transcription translation services do real-time transcription translation? You'll have to interpret what translation is here. Not exactly sure. So do these audio files need to be ingested into your system in order to be transcribed? So I think it's two questions. One about real-time transcription translation. The other one is do they need to be ingested in order to be transcribed? So
right. So let me start with the second and go to the first, and then I can clean up. So it does need to be ingested into our system. Having said that, we do have some deployment for just the cognition to go on premise. So if it is a scenario where GovCloud is not good enough, or if you're a federal agency, and we are FedRAMP certified, sponsored by the DOJ for these types of services. But if you need to go on-prem, we have a solution we can do on-premise. So, but it does have to get ingested either to our cloud or our solution overall. In terms of the various languages and what needs to happen there and real time, we can do it real time. In fact, as an example, we ingest iHeartRadio, all 900 stations, 24 hours a day. And that's on a real time basis. So it depends on what the use case is, and we happy to sit down and cognitively enable that stream or that workflow. Ben, anything you want to add to that?
I think you pretty much covered it. So yeah, we can definitely handle real-time use cases, as John mentioned. And then if you have foreign audio, let's say it's in Spanish or any other language, our separate Illuminate application, which is focused on that transcription use case, can not only transcribe it in that native foreign language, but it can also translate it back to English as well. And then you can review the translated output. So we can definitely work with all those requirements.
Great. Yeah. I'm curious about this ingesting of iHeartRadio, 900 stations. That was not something I mentioned in the slides.
It's it's one of the elements of Veritone. The media has a lot of data, and it needs to be cognitively enabled. And so we have some really nice customers where that put a lot of stress on the system in terms of our overall scale and capability.
Well, that's good. Well, you all did a fantastic job. And by the way, Ben Ha and Daniel Wong, they weren't on camera. They were working the slides. They were working the demo. And so we were thrilled to have them there. Chief David Jantas, we were thrilled to have. We made it work. We had a little bit of technical problems, just in time.
And again, it was a pleasure to join you folks and do this presentation. Thank you.
And John did an excellent job tying it all together. So great panel, great participation. Obviously, people are listening at the very end, throwing in the questions. So attendees, I remind you, if you have a question, put it earlier because someone else might also have that question. So don't wait until the end to do that. All right. Okay. Well, thank you all very much. If you need their information, I don't know, Daniel, if you want to pop up, if you have that contact slide, you could pop it up again. If not, don't worry about it. We could share the information to get a hold of the Veritone folks, or check the landing page on the site for the Veritone, our sponsor page. All their contact information and information is there as well. All right. Okay, well,
Thanks again for having us. Thanks again, Chief. Pleasure to see you.
Thank you. My
Thank you.
pleasure.
See you all at the next session, 3 o'clock. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.